Henry, would you sack Zidane now?
No.
Would you sack him if they don't qualify from the groups?
No.
McCubbin, would you sack Zidane?
Oh, I don't know. It's tough. I think you made a good case for him staying, but I think if they don't qualify for the groups I feel like his position is kind of untenable. And even though Pochettino isn't necessarily the man to fix things right now, he is still. I think he would still be an amazing manager at Real Madrid.
Look at you cheating using so many words.
Yeah, I was going to say, why do I get one word? He gets a whole paragraph. It's an outrage.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I forgot about the one word thing. But yes, in short, yes.
Personally, I wouldn't change manager. I don't really see what any other coach is going to do with the amount of injuries in their squad at the moment. And also, Pochettino aside, I just don't think the options are very good in terms of managers out of work at the moment. I mean, it's Pochettino, Allegri. I mean, Rafa Benitez is a name that sprung to mind. Arsene Wenger. But I'm not blown away by Allegri, Rafa Benitez, or Wenger, to be honest. Pochettino, obviously, fantastic manager, but he's been overlooked for the Bayern jobs, the Juve jobs in the last 12 months. Been out of work since November 2019. Obviously a fantastic manager, did awesome work at Spurs. You know, they'd only finished in the top four, I think, 3 times in 25 years prior to his arrival. They did so in 3 of his 4 years at the club, reached 2 FA Cup semi-finals, of course a Champions League final. He signed really well, he's a really good use, or at least in England, showed that he could really utilise a market that obviously he wasn't familiar with growing up in terms of, you know, he probably didn't watch English footballs in the same way that he did La Liga or whatever. But Dele Alli, Son Heung-min, Toby Alderweireld, fantastic signings. He also developed the likes of Harry Winks and Harry Kane into some of the better players in England, so he can work with the academy as well. He's the outstanding candidate, but I think really Real Madrid are a side in transition, and I wouldn't rush to replace Zidane, to be totally honest. I think unless there is issues within that squad, which has been speculated, that the players want him out, which we have seen before with previous Real Madrid managers getting sort of chucked under the bus slightly, at least in quite a few years gone by with Mourinho, although he did a lot of chucking himself. It was just a pretty unhappy marriage by the end. But Zidane, unless there's issues within the squad and whether they want him, I would keep hold of him for now. But if he does go, Pochettino is by far the best option for me.
I don't know, I think people are quite quick to blame Perez in that, but you know, Zidane has worked with this team for a long time, and there are players who he clearly didn't want to play or didn't see as starters. You know, someone like Kovacic, who has proved himself, you know, over the last 18 months at Chelsea as one of the best central midfielders in Europe. Marcos Llorente, who's, you know, obviously had an amazing kind of transformation at Atletico Madrid. You know, Teo Hernandez, who's doing brilliantly at AC Milan. Reguilon, who, like we've said, would have been a great backup to Ferland Mendy this season, or at least, you know, like could have gone on loan, couldn't he? Not really sure what the thinking was behind that, you know, apart from making that quick 30 million. So yeah, it's I don't know. It's hard to push the blame on anyone, but or on any one person. But I think it has to be split between Perez and Zidane. I don't think you could put too much blame on the players.
What they definitely do need is that long-term replacement for Sergio Ramos, who's 34. Militao is 22. As McCubb said, it's been really difficult for him integrating into a new side with loads of changes in the backline, and he hasn't looked that assured so far, although there's still plenty to come from him. They probably need at least one more midfielder. Modric is 35, Kroos is 30, and we've already seen when Fede Valverde doesn't play, there's a real lack of defensive dynamism, I would say, in that midfield, and potentially they need another 10 if Isco leaves. So there are another left back with Marcelo now 32. So there is a load of players that they could go for. But I wanted to kick off with centre back options. For me, there is one centre back that makes more sense over everyone else, and it's Deo Upamecano. We link him with every club, and for good reason. I think he is the outstanding young centre back in Europe right now. It's clear he's got the ball skills, he's very good in the air, he can bring the ball out of defence really well, he reads the game exceptionally well. He's had some poor Champions League performances this term, which has probably slightly lessened the excitement around him slightly, not least at Old Trafford, but he's still a phenomenal player. He had an off day or an off night that night, and I think he's got a big future ahead of him. And pairing him with Varane, who's likely to be his long-term France partner as well. Really good option. Back up for that, Milan Skriniar, 25, only given 6 League and Champions League starts. He'd be a much cheaper alternative. I mean, I think Inter Milan were only looking for around 30 to 40 million euros in the end this summer. So he would be a good alternative. Very good passer of the ball, brings the ball out really well as well. You know, seems ready-made for a Real Madrid job. And then I'll talk about defensive midfielders, and then I'll get Henry and McCubbs' opinions on the other positions. I think defensive midfielder, they've been linked with Eduardo Camavinga for ages now. He's developing so well at Rennes, 18 years old now. Just looked like a defensive behemoth last year with some nice touches, but this year we've seen far more dynamism. Some of his link-up plays been really nicely. He's shone for the France national team as well. He's now completing over 90% of his passes, nearly 2 dribbles. An alternative, much cheaper, Ismail Benacer, I think would be a really worth looking at. 23 years old, simply glides around the AC Milan pitch. He's absolutely been phenomenal this term alongside Kessié in midfield. He looks completely reborn, Kessié as well. But Benacer, 12 League and Champions League games, 4 tackles and interceptions, nearly 2 dribbles. Probably doesn't have the sort of finesse to his game that Camavinga does. And probably not quite as attractive on the eye, but a really effective player that would work really well alongside Casemiro and someone else in that midfield. Probably Kroos. I think Kroos has still got a couple more years in him, to be fair. He's got the sort of game that's not going to deteriorate that massively with age, because he's never been particularly athletic or, you know, particularly quick at least. But Henry, let's talk about the sort of creative midfielder, because once again, as it always does, the Paul Pogba rumours will start swirling. Do you think he'd be a good option for Real Madrid?
I mean, I do. It says written here, dream option. I'm not sure if you can call Paul Pogba a dream option anymore. Nonetheless, you know, he quite clearly wants that move. I've been writing about Paul Pogba recently, and actually the way that they do play under Zidane would really suit his game. He could play on the left side of a midfield 3, and he does have that box-to-box dynamism to be able to get up. And, you know, let's face it, when Pogba's good, he is very good. And I think he wants to go there. He wants to challenge for titles on a more regular basis. And, you know, the thing you can say about Real Madrid is they could quite easily be challenging again for the title next year. It wouldn't take, I don't think, that much of a drastic change to get them on the right path once again. So I think that's always going to be an attractive option, obviously playing at the Bernabeu, etc. But I mean, that's not to say the 27-year-old is, you know, the perfect player. He's missed 39 games of injury since the start of last season. But, you know, in 17-18, he got 16 goal involvements, and then 23 in 18-19. Takes a huge number of shots. He's got his long passing ability is excellent, and his dribbling stats as well. And actually, you know, when he does defend and when he does use his head a little bit more, he can do it. It's just, you just need to get his head in the right place, and I think maybe like a fresh start for him and the opportunities to go to Madrid might actually be what he needs too, from what I understand. Because, you know, it's all well and good us sitting here and listing off these players. We have to bear in mind how much all these players would cost. And realistically, like, the package we're talking about here is like a 200 million euro package once again, if you really consider it. I mean, Camavinga alone would probably be looking 50, 60 million right now, maybe even more than that. Pogba, though, this is probably going to be Manchester United's last summer coming up to make any substantial return on that investment. Either that, or he's going to run down the clock until he's 29 years old and then just leave on a free where he can choose wherever he wants to go. So, you know, from what I understand from reading, even in The Athletic, they're saying 40 to 50 million. That could be enough to price Pogba away from United this summer.
Really?
In which case, it could be the kind of move that works for him.